The hunt begins. The jungle of Kareth. 9 breathed like a living thing. Moist heat hung heavy beneath the towering canopy, where alien trees stretched hundreds of meters into the sky. Their massive roots twisted through the dark soil like sleeping serpents, and thick vines dangled from branch to branch. Strange cries echoed through the dense foliage, creatures unseen, watching, waiting. This world had been chosen for a reason. Kareth 9 was a hunter's paradise. A sleek black dropship hovered above a clearing before lowering slowly to the ground. Its engines roared briefly before fading into silence. Moments later, the ramp opened with a metallic hiss. 4 armored figures stepped out. They were Varkesh, members of a warrior race known throughout the galaxy for their brutal traditions. Tall and broad-shouldered, their reptilian faces were covered in dark scales, their glowing amber eyes scanning the jungle with excitement. For them, this planet was not dangerous. It was entertainment. One of the hunters stepped forward, his armor decorated with dozens of trophies, teeth, claws, and medals taken from creatures across the galaxy. This was Commander Zareth, leader of the hunting party. Behind him floated several small drones, their lenses glowing as they recorded every moment. "This world will make an excellent arena," Zareth said, his deep voice carrying through the clearing. Another hunter laughed, his sharp teeth visible. "Anything is better than the last hunt," he said. That insectoid species barely fought back. The youngest hunter in the group shifted his weapon impatiently. "And our prey this time?" he asked. A mechanical door slid open at the back of the dropship. 2 guards pushed a figure forward. A human. He stumbled slightly as he stepped onto the jungle floor, blinking against the sunlight breaking through the canopy. His name was Lieutenant Daniel Reyes. His hands were bound moments ago, but now the restraints had been removed. The hunters believed it made the sport more interesting. Daniel took a slow breath, letting the humid air fill his lungs. He studied the jungle. Every sound, every movement, every shadow. One of the hunters stepped close, towering over him. "So this is the famous human," the alien sneered. The others chuckled. Humans had only recently joined the galactic stage. Compared to the powerful predator species of the galaxy, they were seen as weak, fragile creatures with soft skin and no natural weapons. Perfect prey. Commander Zareth circled Daniel slowly, examining him like an animal at a market. "Your species is known for curiosity," he said. "Exploration. Expansion." Daniel didn't answer. Zareth tilted his head slightly, but not for survival. He gestured toward the endless jungle behind them. "You will run," Zareth explained calmly. "We will hunt." Another hunter tossed a small pack onto the ground near Daniel's feet. Inside was basic survival gear: a knife, a small water purifier, and a flare. Nothing more. Daniel glanced down at the items. Then he looked back at the jungle. "You have 1 hour," Zareth said. The drones began to rise into the air, spreading across the treetops to track the hunt. The youngest hunter grinned eagerly. "He'll be dead before sunset." Daniel finally spoke. "Maybe," he said quietly. The hunters laughed again. They expected begging, fear, panic, but the human's voice was calm. That made the youngest hunter frown slightly. Commander Zareth activated a device on his wrist. A holographic timer appeared above the clearing, glowing bright blue. 60:00. The countdown began. "Run, human," Zareth said. Daniel picked up the pack slowly. Then he stepped toward the jungle. The thick vegetation swallowed him within seconds. The timer continued ticking. 59:34. 59:12. 58:55. The hunters waited patiently. Finally, after the hour passed, Zareth raised his hand. "Release the trackers." The drones surged forward into the jungle, scanning the terrain with thermal and motion sensors. Moments later, a holographic map appeared in the air between them. A blinking signal marked Daniel's location. The youngest hunter grinned. "There he is." But Zareth frowned. The signal hadn't moved much. "That's strange," one hunter said. "Perhaps he is injured," another suggested. The youngest hunter chuckled, or too frightened to run. He lifted his rifle, and began moving toward the jungle. "Save some of the hunt for us," another called after him. The hunters followed, spreading into formation as they entered the dense forest. The jungle swallowed the sounds of their footsteps almost instantly. Leaves crunched beneath armored boots. Branches snapped quietly. Their sensors scanned every direction. But something about the situation felt wrong. They moved deeper into the jungle, approaching the signal. The blinking dot grew closer. 50 meters, 30 meters, 10 meters. The hunters stepped into a small clearing and stopped. There were footprints in the dirt. Human footprints. But instead of continuing deeper into the jungle, they ended. Commander Zareth knelt, studying the ground. The tracks were fresh. The human had been here recently. But there were no signs of panic. No chaotic trail. No desperate attempt to escape. The youngest hunter looked around in confusion. Where did he go? Then Zareth noticed something. A faint disturbance in the leaves above. He slowly raised his head. High in the trees, hidden among the branches, a pair of eyes watched them. Human eyes. Daniel Reyes crouched silently on a thick branch nearly 15 meters above the ground. He had been there the entire time, watching them, studying them, waiting, and he wasn't afraid. Commander Zareth felt a strange chill crawl across his scales. The human didn't run. He had chosen the battlefield. The predator's mistake. The jungle of Kareth, 9 had grown quieter, not silent, never silent, but cautious, as if the entire ecosystem had sensed the arrival of new predators. Commander Zareth stood in the clearing, his glowing eyes still fixed on the tree canopy where he had briefly seen the human. But the branch above them was empty now. The leaves swayed gently. Nothing more. He moved. One of the hunters growled, scanning the branches with his rifle. Fast. The youngest hunter, Vekker, scoffed. "A frightened animal can climb," he said dismissively. "It means nothing." Zareth remained still. His instincts told him otherwise. Animals ran. Prey fled. But this human had done something very different. He had stayed. And worse, he had watched them. Zareth activated his wrist scanner. A holographic map shimmered into existence, displaying the jungle terrain. The tracking drones circled above the canopy, searching for thermal signatures. "There," one hunter said suddenly. A signal blinked nearly 200 meters east. "The human is moving again." Vekker grinned. Finally, without waiting for orders, he sprinted forward into the jungle, eager to claim the kill. "Vekker," Zareth warned. But the young hunter was already gone. Branches snapped as he pushed through the thick vegetation. His armor sliced through vines and brush as he moved quickly toward the blinking signal. He imagined the glory already. A human trophy would earn him respect among the Varkesh, perhaps even a place in the royal hunts. The jungle grew denser as he moved deeper into the forest. The signal blinked again. 100 meters. 70. 30. Vekker slowed, raising his rifle. "This is too easy," he muttered. The ground beneath him was soft with damp leaves and roots. Strange insects buzzed around his armor. Then he saw it, a human footprint in the mud. Fresh. Vekker grinned wider. "You're not clever enough to escape," he whispered. He took another step forward. That was the moment the jungle snapped. A thick vine whipped upward from the ground, tightening violently around his ankle. Before Vekker could react, the jungle floor collapsed beneath him. The trap launched him violently into the air. His roar of shock echoed through the trees as he was yanked upward by the tension of twisted vines. 20 feet above the ground, he slammed into a massive tree trunk, suspended upside down. His rifle fell from his grip and crashed to the forest floor below. "What?" The vine tightened further around his leg. Vekker struggled, slashing at the vines with a blade from his belt. But the trap had been carefully built. Too carefully, too precisely. High above the forest floor, hidden within the branches of another tree, Daniel Reyes watched calmly. The trap had taken less than 30 minutes to build. The jungle had provided everything he needed. Vines strong enough to hold several hundred pounds, flexible branches for tension, and just enough leaves to hide the trigger line. He studied the struggling alien carefully. Reptilian, heavy armor, energy weapon, arrogant. Daniel had seen the same type of enemy before. Not alien, of course, but soldiers who thought technology made them unbeatable. It never did. Below him, Vekker finally cut through the vine, binding his ankle. He began to fall, but he never reached the ground. The jungle exploded with movement. A massive shadow dropped from the branches above him. Claws the size of daggers sank into the alien hunter's armor. The creature was native to Kareth 9, a six-limbed predator with a mouth full of serrated teeth. The scent of struggling prey had drawn it instantly. Vekker screamed as the beast dragged him violently into the canopy. Branches cracked. Leaves shook. Then the jungle swallowed the noise. Silence returned. Daniel remained perfectly still. He waited. Minutes passed. Only when the forest was calm again did he climb down carefully from his perch. He landed beside the fallen rifle. The alien weapon was heavier than he expected, but the interface was simple enough to understand. Point. Fire. Daniel slung it over his shoulder. "Thanks," he muttered. Far away, deeper in the jungle, the remaining hunters suddenly stopped walking. Their scanners blinked urgently. Commander Zareth stared at the holographic map. One signal had vanished. "Vekker's." "What happened?" one hunter asked. Zareth didn't answer immediately. His gaze moved slowly toward the jungle ahead. "The human happened," he said quietly. Another hunter laughed nervously. "You think the prey killed him?" Zareth looked down at the human tracks again. They were deliberate, calculated, not the desperate trail of something running for its life. The commander finally understood something deeply unsettling. "Humans evolved as persistence hunters," he said slowly. The others looked at him in confusion. "They hunted by tracking prey for days," Zareth continued, "across entire continents." He raised his glowing eyes toward the dark jungle ahead. They did not rely on claws or strength or speed. He paused. They relied on patience. The hunters fell silent. Somewhere in the distance, something moved quietly through the leaves. Watching them, studying them, waiting. High above the jungle floor, hidden in shadows and branches, Daniel Reyes adjusted his grip on the alien rifle. His breathing was steady. His eyes focused. The hunt had begun, but not the way the Varkesh expected. Daniel smiled faintly. "You wanted a hunt," he whispered into the jungle. "Now you've got one." The hunter becomes the prey. The jungle of Kareth 9 had changed. What had once been an exciting hunting ground for the Varkesh now felt like a living maze filled with unseen dangers. The thick canopy blocked most of the sunlight, casting long shadows across the forest floor. Every rustling leaf sounded like a warning. Commander Zareth moved carefully through the dense undergrowth, his armored boots pressing quietly into the damp soil. Behind him, two remaining hunters followed with their weapons raised. Vekker was gone. No signal, no response. The jungle had swallowed him. Zareth's instincts told him something the others were only beginning to understand. This was no longer a hunt. It was a contest, and a human was proving far more dangerous than expected. One of the hunters activated a scanning drone and sent it gliding upward through the branches. The small machine hummed softly as it began sweeping the forest with thermal sensors. "If he is hiding, we will find him," the hunter said confidently. Zareth didn't respond. Instead, he knelt near the ground again, examining faint disturbances in the soil. Human footprints, but they were spaced oddly. Slow, deliberate. The pattern wasn't that of someone running in fear. The human had been walking, hunting. A quiet realization crept into Zareth's mind, and he didn't like it. "He is studying us," the commander said. Another hunter scoffed. "Impossible. We are the hunters." Before Zareth could reply, the drone overhead suddenly flickered. Its feed glitched. The holographic display on the hunter's wrist crackled with static. "What?" The drone dropped from the canopy moments later, crashing into the undergrowth. The hunter cursed and rushed forward to retrieve it. Zareth's eyes narrowed. "Stop!" But the warning came too late. The hunter bent down to pick up the damaged drone. The moment he lifted it, something clicked beneath the leaves. A small metallic cylinder rolled forward. For half a second, none of them understood what they were seeing. Then the jungle erupted in a violent blast. The explosion shattered branches and threw the hunter backward into a tree trunk. His armor absorbed most of the impact, but smoke and sparks poured from his chest plate. Zareth stepped back, raising his rifle. The air filled with drifting ash and broken leaves. Improvised explosive, built from alien ammunition. The commander felt the cold grip of realization tighten around him. The human had taken their technology and learned how to use it. The wounded hunter struggled to stand, his armor cracked and sparking. He set a trap, he groaned. Zareth scanned the tree line. Somewhere nearby, the human was watching. He could feel it. Spread out, Zareth ordered. But stay within sight. The remaining hunters obeyed, moving cautiously through the jungle. Every step now carried tension. Every shadow looked like danger. High above them, Daniel Reyes watched silently from a cluster of thick branches. Mud covered parts of his body, masking his heat signature from thermal scanners. The alien rifle rested across his arms as he observed the hunters below. 3 had become 2. He studied the commander carefully. This one was different, calmer, more cautious. Daniel respected that, but it wouldn't change the outcome. The jungle was now his battlefield, and the Varkesh had walked straight into it. Daniel moved quietly along the branches, climbing higher before descending on the opposite side of the forest. His movements were careful, controlled, a soldier's discipline. Below him, the hunters suddenly heard a faint rustling deeper in the jungle. Movement, one of them whispered. They aimed their weapons toward the sound. A shadow darted between the trees. Human, the hunter shouted. Both aliens fired. Energy blasts tore through the foliage, burning leaves and branches. But the target was gone. After him, the hunter roared. The 2 aliens rushed forward, crashing through the brush toward the movement they had seen. That was exactly what Daniel wanted. The ground ahead narrowed into a steep ravine filled with tangled roots and loose stones. The hunters charged straight into it. Then the first blast detonated. Daniel had planted 3 charges along the ravine walls. When the hunters entered the narrow path, the triggered explosion sent rocks crashing down from both sides. The ravine collapsed into chaos. Stone and dirt thundered downward like an avalanche. One hunter barely escaped, diving backward as debris buried the narrow passage. But his companion wasn't so lucky. The jungle went quiet again. Dust drifted slowly through the air. The surviving hunter stared at the blocked ravine in horror. He killed him. Commander Zareth slowly stepped forward beside him. Now only 2 Varkesh remained. The hunter's voice trembled slightly. This isn't possible. Zareth stared into the jungle ahead. Yes, he said quietly. It is. Because now he understood the terrible truth. Humans were not the fragile creatures the galaxy believed them to be. They were adaptable, creative, relentless. Their entire evolutionary history had prepared them for this exact kind of battle. The commander finally spoke the thought none of them wanted to admit. He isn't running, Zareth said. The hunter looked at him nervously. Then what is he doing? From somewhere deep in the jungle, a branch snapped softly. Commander Zareth raised his glowing eyes toward the darkness. He is hunting us. Far above the forest floor, hidden within the shadows of the trees, Daniel Reyes watched the last 2 hunters carefully. His grip tightened on the rifle. The hunt was nearly over. The lesson. Night began to settle over the jungle of Kareth 9. The last rays of sunlight faded behind the towering canopy, leaving the forest cloaked in shadows. Strange creatures began to stir in the darkness, their distant cries echoing through the thick vegetation. Commander Zareth stood motionless near the edge of the collapsed ravine. Only 2 Varkesh hunters remained, himself and 1 frightened warrior beside him. The hunter's breathing had grown uneven, his glowing eyes darting nervously between the trees. This is madness, the hunter muttered. 1 human cannot defeat us. Zareth did not answer immediately. He had fought across dozens of worlds. He had hunted creatures larger, stronger, and more vicious than the humans stalking them now. But those creatures had something in common. They acted on instinct. This human acted on strategy, and that made him far more dangerous. The human understands fear, Zareth finally said. The other hunter frowned. What do you mean? Zareth slowly turned his gaze toward the jungle. He knows how to create it. A sudden rustling came from the trees ahead. Both hunters raised their rifles instantly. Show yourself, the hunter shouted. For a moment, nothing moved. Then a figure stepped quietly from behind a cluster of thick vines. Daniel Reyes. Mud streaked across his face and clothing. Leaves clung to his gear, and the alien rifle rested calmly in his hands. He stood about 20 meters away, not hiding, not running, simply watching them. The younger hunter snarled and raised his weapon. You die now, human. Before he could fire, Daniel spoke. You sure about that? The calm tone of his voice froze the alien's finger for half a second. Zareth raised a clawed hand. Wait. The hunter hesitated. Daniel didn't move. The jungle seemed to hold its breath. Zareth studied the human carefully. You killed my hunters, the commander said. Daniel shrugged slightly. You started the game. The younger hunter's anger boiled over. This creature mocks us. He fired. The blast struck the ground where Daniel had been standing. But the human had already moved. He vanished behind a fallen tree trunk as energy blasts tore through the clearing. Spread out, the hunter roared. He charged forward. That was exactly what Daniel expected. The moment the hunter crossed the center of the clearing, the jungle erupted with thunder. A massive shape burst through the thick vegetation. The creature was enormous. 6 powerful limbs slammed into the ground as it roared, its jaws lined with rows of serrated teeth. It was the same predator species that had killed Vecca earlier, but this one was far larger. Daniel had spent the last hour luring it here. The younger hunter barely had time to react. The creature smashed into him with overwhelming force, sending both crashing into the dirt. Claws ripped through armor. The hunter screamed as the beast dragged him into the darkness of the jungle. The clearing fell silent again. Only 2 figures remained standing. Daniel stepped slowly back into the open. Commander Zareth lowered his weapon slightly. The jungle wind stirred the leaves between them. For the first time in many hunts, the Varkesh commander felt something unfamiliar. Respect. You could have run, Zareth said. Daniel tilted his head slightly. But you didn't. No. The alien's glowing eyes narrowed. What? The question hung in the humid air between them. Daniel met the alien's gaze calmly. Because humans aren't prey. The words were simple, but the meaning behind them struck deeper than any weapon. Zareth studied the human for a long moment. Then something unexpected happened. He lowered his rifle. You have proven your strength, the commander said quietly. Few beings in this galaxy could survive what you have done today. Daniel didn't relax. He kept the rifle aimed. Good, he replied. Because I'm not finished. Zareth gave a low rumbling laugh. You misunderstand. Slowly, the alien activated a device on his wrist. High above the jungle, the Varkesh dropship engines roared to life. We came here seeking sport, Zareth said. His eyes glowed brighter in the darkness. Instead, we found a lesson. Daniel said nothing. The commander continued. The galaxy believes humans are weak. He looked around at the destroyed battlefield. At least they did. The dropship descended slowly through the canopy. Before boarding, Zareth turned back one final time. This would not be forgotten, human. Daniel watched him carefully. Good, he said. Tell them something for me. Zareth paused. What message? Daniel stepped forward slightly, his voice steady and cold. If your empire wants to hunt humans. He raised the alien rifle slightly. Bring an army. The dropship lifted into the night sky moments later, vanishing beyond the jungle canopy. Silence returned to Kareth 9. Daniel stood alone in the clearing. The hunt was over, but he knew something far bigger had just begun. Because somewhere among the stars, the story of this hunt would spread. A story about a species that refused to run. A species that turned hunters into prey. And soon, the entire galaxy would learn the same lesson the Varkesh had learned today. Humans didn't run. Humans fought back.